Okay. So hello guys. I saw that my drawing video got a lot more views than my reading out videos. So I guess I'll do more drawing, but I'm doing a reading video just to keep it so I upload consistently. So here we go. They had the same features. Could they have possibly been family? Daryl and Kent had rushed out of the camper and ran back to their tent. It was pretty far away and could not be seen from the camper. They knew, but they knew which direction it was. Daryl and Kent had managed to wipe the image from their minds. The two had gotten back into their car in a hurry and got away from the camper. Kent pulled out the ladder so it was taller so he could access the stuff in the canoe. The first thing he got out was a gun. He passed it down to Daryl, and then Daryl looked up at the boat. "Should we sail this thing today?" asked Daryl. "Yeah, bro. I think it would be nice to look up at the stars before we go to sleep." It was still daytime, but the sun was starting to set. They had to get in they had got into the canoe and sailed off and had walked over to the lake. It took about 9 minutes to get completely situated in the water. Oh, I mangled that sentence. Kent looked out over the lake. Its blue water sparkled with the orange sunset glow. Kent climbed into the boat. "Is everything ready so I can wait, let me Is everything ready so we can go back to sleep tonight?" Daryl asked. "I don't know if I can sleep tonight. Seeing those dead bodies had me frightened." Kent nodded his head. The the car is closed up as well." Kent had pushed the boat out and jumped in before he face planted in the water. The oars sat on the side of the boat, gently swaying with the light waves in the water. Kent took the oars and began rowing to get himself situated over the middle of the lake. Daryl was pointing to something and shouted, "Land ho!" He looked over to where his finger pointed. There was a small island no less than 18 square meters. Daryl turned the boat to the island. After rowing for a few exciting minutes, the sun had gone down only slightly more. It was still quite a nice day. They had finally come within a jumping distance of the island. As soon as the boat touched the island, something changed. The entire lake was now a deep maroon and smelled of rot. Kent and Daryl had rushed out of the canoe onto the island in fear. "Oh, dude, what just happened?" said Kent, staring out over the lake, and began pacing. "I don't know, Kenny." Daryl sat there looking over the lake. All of a sudden, leaves crunched and Daryl heard Kent scream. There was a tightening of rope sound and then he heard a loud jerk. "Kenny?" Daryl said, sitting up. "Over here," Kent said in a pain-ridden voice, dangling from inside a hole. There were leaves at the bottom. He had fallen through and gotten snared on his ankle. It was broken. He was moaning in pain. Daryl jumped down and helped Kent down. He had brought the gun just in case anything bad happened, but luckily he had also brought his half-serrated knife. Daryl got out the blade and oh no, that's a bad word, and cut Kent free. "It was a trap," Kent said shakily. Daryl helped Kent to his feet. Then Daryl tried to lift Kent out of the hole. "It had a rounded edge, so there isn't anything to grab onto," Kent said, looking back down at Daryl. Daryl set Kent back down. Looking around behind them, they saw a tunnel wide enough for each of them to walk down. Chapter 3, Underblood. Oof, I'm so mangled. Chapter 2, I'll try to do better here. "Well, we're in some deep shit now," said Daryl. "Only one way to go from here." Daryl stared into the darkness of the tunnel. Kent took his shoulder and Daryl walked him down the tunnel. After about 4 minutes of walking, there was a dim glow coming from the end. They could see the end. As they continued, they came upon an opening. As they looked out of the cave, they saw buildings. There were bats on the cave ceiling. They saw streets, steampunk-like buildings with legs instead of, steampunk-like bikes with legs instead of wheels. There were people. This was a city underneath the lake. Some of the buildings were made of marble and they looked like they came straight from the 18th century, but others looked more futuristic. Towers dotted the city, peeking over the other buildings and reaching about a third of the way to the ceiling. There were box-like rooms hanging from the cave ceiling. Rope ladders dangled from them. This place was at least 1.5 square kilometers. The streets were sided with rivers and trodden paths. A bridge passed over the river to the other side, linking the meadows to the city. The sidewalk had lamps, which is where most of the light came from. They looked heavily artistic. At least 90% of the entire lamppost was covered with interesting art. The lamps on the side of the road were bright. They lit up the whole cave system with the dim orange Daryl and Kent saw from earlier. Daryl and Kent stood there in awe. A person came from around the corner and noticed them instantly. Kent and Daryl had instantly noticed that this wasn't a person. It was some kind of warthog wearing only a shirt. "Hello," he shouted as Daryl and Kent tried to shrink back into the tunnel. "Hey, wait," cried the warthog, waving his hoof. "Don't worry, I won't hurt ya. We haven't had anybody come down this tunnel in years. Nice to finally meet ya. Come on, follow me, I'll show you around." This warthog waved his hoof to follow him, but Daryl and Kent were really skeptical. "What are you? What is this place? Where are we?" "What am I?" said the warthog, staring down at his body. "Well, obviously I'm a warthog. If you look closer," the warthog said, grabbing a pin on his shirt. The pin had fake gears surrounding a paper that said Horik, Mayor of Underblood. "I am Horik. It's a pleasure to meet you." He cocked his head and held out a hoof. Kent and Daryl were hesitant at first, but Kent ended up limping forth to take hold. There, said Horik. "No need to be afraid," and he gently took Kent along, keeping safe as to not walk too fast and trip him. Daryl walked alongside. "You see those things up there?" said Horik, pointing to the rooms dangling from the ceilings. "Those are our bar rooms, to have some fun." Horik looked over at Kent, smiling. "Want to go in one?" Kent nodded. Horik led them down the sidewalk with multiple steampunk fences to get to the bottom of the rope ladder. The fences had spirals of rusty metal with gears in between at varying points. Nuts and bolts are welded into the metal spirals at different points, giving them a plant-like appearance. Horik began to climb and then beckoned for Daryl and Kent to come. Kent could not climb, but his ankle was broken, but Daryl would tell him about what was in it. "Hey, yeah, guys," said Horik. I didn't mean for you to have to make your way down here in that way. I'm sorry you broke your ankle, whatever your name is." "Kent. I'm Kent," he said to Horik, who was standing a few rungs up the ladder. "Yeah, we set that trap so we could get some nutrition. This was way back after our first human came through." "What happened to them?" "Humans are in the higher class of Underblood. He's probably making new technology and helping the king." "Who's that?" asked Daryl. "That's a long story," said Horik. Horik started climbing the ladder. Daryl followed. After some shaking of the ladder and almost falling off, Daryl had reached the top. Horik opened the hatch and climbed in. Then he looked down at Daryl and held out a hoof. "Come on, I'll pull you in." Daryl took hold of Horik's hoof and he pulled Daryl in. Daryl stood up. Then he saw a lot of various different evolved animals sitting at the bar. There was a deer, a fox, a hippopotamus, and a hippopotamus. The bar looked like your average bar, except for all the pipes were twisted up in strange directions. There were copper pipes that turned left and right to get to their destination. The bar looked fairly standard, but there were side supports that helped anchor the whole building to the ceiling. The side supports were also very elaborate metal plates with stationary gear designs, as well as complex machines. The taps are what confused Daryl. Each one of them had a flavor labeled on it. Where did the pipes go? The pipes went up. Where was up? Into the ceiling. What lies beyond the ceiling? The lake. The pipes flowed blood down into the bars so the creatures could drink it. said Daryl, I have to go. Well, let me